What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. As you all know, Jeremy Corbyn took Diane Abbott's crown last night for the most epic car crash interview ever seen on British television. It really couldn't have gone much worse for him. Andrew Neil decided he was going to have Corbynated chicken for supper last night and thoroughly destroyed this socialist shitweasel in a 30-minute interview that must have seemed endless to the beleaguered Labour leader. This interview came hours after the chief rabbi spoke out yesterday in a scathing attack against the Corbynated chicken and the Labour Party by suggesting some Jewish communities fear a Corbyn government so much they are considering leaving the UK if he becomes Prime Minister. Which is an incredible thing to hear, considering it's something that last happened in Europe during the 1930s as far as I'm aware. But to be honest, I think it's more than just the Jewish community that would want to leave if Corbyn got in Downing Street. It would actually be most of the country, and that would include some former Labour MPs who fear it so much they have openly said do not vote for Labour at this election. This topic was discussed during the Andrew Neil interview with Jeremy last night, where Corbyn spent 10 minutes deflecting questions on the subject and refusing to say sorry for it. Now, we are not going to cover that in this video. I might cover it in a video later on. Today we are going to look at Andrew Neil absolutely destroying the Corbynated chicken's insane Brexit policy, his economy destroying manifesto, along with the tax hikes for pensioners and childless couples. So let's check it out.
Let's move on to Brexit. You wanted to negotiate a new Brexit deal with the EU and then put that to the people in another referendum. You say you'd be neutral. So why would the British people want a Prime Minister that doesn't have a view on what really is the greatest peacetime issue that's faced this country for 70 years?
Well, I think the country has become very divided over Brexit since 2016, that's clear. And we can't forever go on debating what happened in the referendum in 2016. People that voted Remain and are living difficult lives, universal credit, private rented, poor lives.
Why are you remaining neutral?
Can I finish, please?
I'm just asking you why you're remaining neutral.
I'm trying to explain what our policy is and put those alongside people who live in areas that may well have voted Leave in exactly the same condition. Let's not set one community against the other. And so our party, which represents people who voted both Leave and Remain, has developed a policy. The policy is that within 3 months we'll negotiate a leave option with the EU, right, which does take us out of membership. And
I've said that, Mr. Corbyn. My question was why are you remaining neutral on the greatest issue of our time?
And within 6 months, we'll put that to a referendum.
And I've said that too. Why are you remaining neutral?
And within 6 months, we'll put that to a referendum of the people of Britain, who will make that decision. The Labour government will carry out the decision of that referendum. I will be the honest broker that will make sure that the referendum is fair and make sure that the Leave deal is a credible one and the Remain option is alongside it, so that we can actually protect jobs in this country, trade relationships, and crucially protect the Good Friday Agreement, which has done such, has been so effective in Northern Ireland.
If anyone missed Andrew Neil's question there, it was asking how Corbyn can stay neutral on the Brexit debate, given it's the greatest issue of the current time. Of course, this shitweasel does everything he can to deflect the question, and instead goes on about his Brexit policy, which is in itself ridiculous because not only does it make no sense at all, but he doesn't even understand what he is talking about when he discusses it. When Andrew Neil tries to pull him up on it, he gets a bit salty and continues to randomly talk about Leave and Remain voters on benefits coming together, because he claims he does not want to set one community against the other, which is not only completely irrelevant to what he was asked, but is also ridiculously hypocritical for two reasons. First, he only mentions the Leave and Remain voters who are on benefits, not any that work or might own their own homes. So he's already set those communities apart, but let's be honest, no real Leave voter is going to vote for the Labour Party's second referendum with Remain versus Remain 2.0 as the options. Essentially, that whole clip is the Corbynated chicken avoiding the question because he knows answering it would make him look like an idiot. Although, to be honest, the fact that he didn't answer it and just sat there spewing nonsense kind of made him look like an idiot anyway. Now, let's move on to the clip where he talks about free movement should he get a deal with the EU.
Well, all he's offering is to take a side with Donald Trump and the USA.
In this deal that you are hoping to negotiate, if you got it, would it include free movement as we have now?
There would be obviously movement of people probably related to economic and social needs. There would be a guarantee of family rights and family reunion, as indeed I proposed in 2016.
So it would be the same as now.
Finish. And also there is a huge shortage of staff in the National Health Service and other services, which can only be filled immediately from Europe as well.
So
there will be a lot of movement.
Right.
Well, that is about the only question he answers. And let me tell you, it's not going to make any Leave voter happy. It shows what we already knew. The Labour Party will open the floodgates, especially considering they plan to make immigration services like visa and passport taxpayer funded. So we will have to pay for the influx of new voters Corbyn wants to bring in. So you better get ready for it. If Corbyn won, there would be uncontrollable immigration from every socialist shithole the world has ever known. And let's not forget his terrorist friends. I'm sure he would welcome them with open arms. That alone should be reason for no one to vote Labour next month. Let's move on though to his tax hikes that will affect, obviously, everyone.
Spending. You've outlined a huge spending spree, over 80 billion extra a year. And you say it can all be paid for out of taxing the rich and business. But it's not true, is it, Mr. Corbyn? People on modest incomes are going to pay more tax under your plans.
Only those earning over £80,000 per year will see a tax increase.
Well, let's hold on. You're scrapping the marriage allowance.
The marriage allowance is £250 a year.
And that goes to people earning less than 80,000.
For married couples, but those people that are cohabiting in a very happy family atmosphere and bringing up children do not get the benefit of that.
But those who do get it will lose it.
It seems to me this is a step towards equality, which
you may be right. My point is,
started a long time ago.
You may be right. That's not my point. My point is that these people, there's almost 2 million of them, are going to lose £250, and they earn a lot less than 80,000.
But they will also be getting a pay rise when we bring in a living wage. They will also be getting improvement in free nursery provision for 2 to 4 year olds.
But they are going to pay more tax.
They will also get properly funded schools.
Wait, let me stop that there and address that clip in sequence. Andrew Neil lined up the Corbynated chicken well. He wanted him to say the top 5% are the only ones who will be taxed, which we all know is wrong. But the dopey tosspot took the bait and said it will only be the rich who get taxed. The second he did that, Andrew knew he had the Corbynated chicken by the giblets. Because of course, it won't just be the rich who get taxed, it will be everyone across the country. For which Andrew Neil has the information ready to open this commie twat like a tin of beans. Take the examples given during this clip about married couples without kids, losing their £250 a year tax break. That won't affect those on £80,000 a year, it will affect everyone who currently gets it, which is going to be people from all walks of life under 80k a year. Now rather than admitting it, Corbyn then gives what has to be the dumbest response in this interview so far. He claims they won't lose out because of the living wage increase, free childcare and new schools, which I'm sure you all know is ridiculous, since 2 of the 3 things he claims can make up for this tax hike will not benefit those people losing out on the tax break, since this £250 allowance is for people without kids, as you heard me and Andrew Neil say already. Therefore they have no use for any amount of free childcare or school places, do they? You are just taking it off these couples, which then forces them to pay more tax, because as we all know, Corbyn's manifesto and its costings are not based in reality, so taxing everyone more was always inevitable. This complete idiot tries to justify raising tax on married couples because families themselves don't get the same tax break, like that will make up for the fact he has lied about raising taxes for lower earners. And let's also not forget that families get other benefits for having kids and looking after them, namely child tax credits and the like. He will do absolutely anything to avoid admitting that he is going to increase tax for at least 2 million low-paid workers well below the top 5% of earners. I still find it amazing he tried to claim married couples with no kids will benefit from taxpayer-funded childcare and more schools. Talk about dumb as a brick. It is a shame Andrew Neil didn't pick up on that really. Now, let's move on because Corbyn is not finished yet.
But they are going to pay more tax.
They won't get the advantage. It's actually taking away $250.
Let me give you another example. You're going to have higher dividend taxes, and that'll hit people on modest incomes too, not just the rich. Take somebody on a state pension. Maybe they've also got an annuity of about 4,000, a small private pension, and they've saved and they've got dividend income of about 2,000. At the moment, they pay £9 in income tax. That's it. Under you, they'll pay over £400 in income tax. We're talking about people who are just on £14,000
They'll
a
be
year.
taxed on the basis of their total income.
14,000.
Yeah,
They'll
but
pay 400 more.
they'll be taxed on the basis of their total income.
And they would pay
that
400
would,
more.
and it's a graded tax, so that would be that would.
But
that
they are
is
not
that is
anywhere
reasonable
near. They're not
and fair
anywhere
to
near
do.
80,000, and you've said nobody below 80,000 would pay tax, and these people earning 14,000 would pay 400 more.
I would question that figure actually, but what I would also say is that the whole purpose behind our manifesto, which I have here, is to recognise that we have to do something about the underfunding of our public services and the poverty and inequality that austerity has brought to this country.
Saying you're
And
adding
unless we-
I'm just saying you're saying you're
No, but
adding
Andrew,
to people on
strangely,
£1,400.
You haven't asked any questions about poverty and austerity in
Let
Britain.
me come on. Well, I do ask the question, so let's come on.
So Andrew Neil moves on to pensioners earning around 14k a year. That will now be taxed £400 more because of the Labour Party's policies of spend, increase debt and tax everyone to try and pay for it. As you heard, it's not a small tax increase per year. It's £400 extra per year. For someone earning as little as 14k a year, that's a big difference, let me tell you. I guess Diane Abbott did the maths when Labour calculated who was in the top 5% of earners, because it seems everyone is included in this top 5%. We had all guessed Diane Abbott had done the maths on Labour's manifesto. Now we actually have the proof that she did. Instead of apologising for it, Corbyn tries to defend it, even saying a £400 increase on someone earning 14k is a fair amount to him. He is fucking deluded. You are talking about pensioners here who have paid in all their lives, and you think it's fair to take £400 a year off them to pay for your batshit crazy socialist policies. Talk about out of touch with reality. He ends the clip there trying to change the subject because he knows Andrew Neil has caught him out. The tax hikes are going to be felt everywhere and mostly by those who are far from the top 5%, who Andrew Neil is going to get to now. So let's move on and see what more Corbyn has for us in this car crash interview.
On to the top 5% of earners, where you hope to get all your money, that plus business as well. You often imply that these top 5%, they actually don't pay much tax at the moment, and you're going to make them do so. What share of income tax revenues do they currently pay?
They pay a top rate of about 45-50%.
No, what share of income tax revenues do they contribute?
They contribute quite a lot, of course.
How much?
I couldn't give you the exact figure, but they contribute quite a lot.
They already contribute 50% of all income tax
But they are
revenues.
on very high earnings.
Of course, and they're paying a very high
And we
amount
think
of
they
tax.
should pay. We think they could and should pay a little bit more.
But it seems to me the tax base now has got narrower and narrower. And if you take the very richest, the top 0.1%, these are people earning hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, they pay 8%, sorry, 1 in 8 of all income tax, 12% of all income tax they pay. It would only take a small
But there's
number...
corporate taxation as well on top of that.
But
You're only talking of income tax.
I'm only talking of income tax. But it would only take a small number of these people to leave the country, and there are only 31,000 of them in 0.1%, your tax base crumbles.
No, it doesn't crumble at all, because there's also a large proportion of income comes from corporate taxation as well.
No, but I'm talking income tax revenues, your single biggest tax stream, and more it's paid by a few people at the top. So therefore, if they don't like you and your tax rises, you lose your tax base.
I think they would also recognise that tax rates in general have gone down, that the levels of inequality have gone up, the levels of personal wealth for them have gone up enormously over the past 10 years, and they can see all around them the crumbling of public services and the terrible levels of child poverty that exist across Britain.
But if these people leave, you don't have the money.
Andrew,
you don't have the money if these people leave.
The whole message has to be, we need more equality, we need more opportunity in our society. I'm sure you would agree with that.
If your tax base leaves the country, you don't have the money for that public spending.
There is no reason why they would have to leave the country, and they shouldn't, because we want people to be here, we want people to be investing, and also they will get the benefits of a growing economy. They will get the benefits of the investment opportunities we will bring through that growing economy as well.
Well, like I said, Andrew has moved on to the top 5% and how much tax they contribute to the coffers as it stands. When asked the question in plain English, Corbyn acts like he didn't understand it and tries to talk about their tax rates, before Andrew Neil stops him in his tracks and says, no, how much do they contribute? Of course, this idiot has no idea how much they contribute because he does not care. He just needs a scapegoat to get the freeloaders of society on his side. This is why everything his party wants to do is labelled as free, when in actual fact it means taxpayer funded. He is counting on the ignorance of people to get more votes, claiming he will give them free this and free that while taxing the rich, who he seems to think those below envy like he does, which of course is not true. Yes, we would all like to have their money, but we do not envy those who have worked hard to earn the money they have and also provide the rest of us with jobs and technology, which we would not have otherwise. The socialist system Corbyn wants to bring in does not innovate because anytime someone makes something useful, the state confiscates it, much like he plans to do with utilities and the internet. He is counting on people's ignorance to how the word really works, hoping that they will just listen to the word free and follow him thinking he cares about them, when in actual fact he despises them and just wants to push his own agenda that will be detrimental to the lives of those who vote him in, the same as it will be to everyone who opposes him. All we can do is hope that those who would usually listen to the nonsense Corbyn comes out with actually pay attention to what Andrew Neil tells the BBC audience when he brings out the real facts and figures surrounding what high earners contribute to the public purse, which, as you heard, is half of all income tax revenue, which really does make Corbyn's tax hikes a very dangerous proposition for the country, because as Andrew points out, when he mentions the very richest in the country, who alone contribute 12% of the overall income tax pot, could leave and put the country's coffers right in the shit. Because remember, most people on 80k a year won't be able to up sticks and leave. Some will, but not all. Those at the very tip top though will have the means to leave, with houses likely in many countries, that could literally up and leave with their income tax the very day Corbyn gets in, which is what Andrew Neil and many others, including myself, have said before. If they did leave and we suddenly got anywhere near a 12% deficit in our income tax, the Labour manifesto becomes even more damaging to the country. And we have to remember that it is possible for these people to leave, and, to be honest, could you blame them? The top 5% paying 50% of the income tax seems more than fair to me, and I'm sure it would to most people. Unless, of course, you are a jealous socialist scumbag like this complete tosspot. When confronted by this blatantly obvious fact, the Corbynated chicken decides to continue his earlier theme of talking absolute shit, by claiming the richest people in the country would happily give up their wealth to pay more because of inequality and their personal wealth going up. Is he completely stupid or what? The way rich people stay rich is not by giving it to socialist governments like you would bring in Corbyn. If he thinks the message we need more equality and shit is going to resonate with the rich and make them stay, then he is by far more delusional than even Joe Swinson. Rich people don't care about equality, and to be honest, neither does 95% of the country. It's just the Westminster elite, Twitter activists, and unhinged millennials who come out with these insane woke statements that dumbass politicians think the general public cares about. It goes to show how out of touch this guy really is. None of what he has said is high on the list of priorities for the average voter in Britain, and especially not the working class, who Labour used to be the party of. Not the liberal elites in rich areas of London that they are now. Not once does he admit his policies could end up destroying the tax revenue for this country, meaning it would have to be picked up by everyone else. I think the Tories' £2,400 per person tax increase claims are way off the mark. It's probably more like double that if the rich start evacuating this country, which is possible. Anyway, let's move on, because he's not done yet, obviously.
And then there's the amount you're going to borrow. You intend to borrow hundreds of billions for investment. You're going to borrow couple of hundred million more for nationalisation. You're going to borrow billions for the Green Deal. Borrow. Is there no limit to what can go on the Corbyn credit card?
Well, first of all, for nationalisation, you don't borrow. What you do is change share ownership for government bonds. It becomes an investment from which we...
You're creating more government debt.
No. Can I finish?
You're creating debt.
If you take over a company, say a water company, and you exchange those shares for government bonds, you then own the water company, the public as a whole. It would be run very differently, and the income from the water comes to
I
the
understand
public.
that,
Comes to the public
but
purse.
to acquire
So
these companies, you have to issue more debt.
you change
up
it,
to
you-
about 200 billion.
You exchange it for government bonds, which obviously
Which is
do,
debt.
do attract an interest rate, but it attracts a benefit. And I think you'll find that ultimately it becomes cost neutral.
Is there any limit to the Corbyn credit card?
We are not going to willy-nilly borrow. What we want to do is deal with the worst aspects of what's happened in austerity, the worst aspects of poverty in Britain, and on public ownership, we've made it very clear that those natural monopolies like Royal Mail,
Sure.
like the train operating companies and like the water industry will be taken into public ownership, as will
right.
the national grid, to ensure that we can get development and investment in the national grid to ensure
And of
that
course,
the
all
green
that
energy,
inve-
the
and of
green
course,
energy
all-
revolution
You will
does
have
take
to
place.
borrow for all that investment as well, because it will now be on the government's balance sheet.
This idiot is incredible. How can he not know that government bonds are government debt and still sit there trying to argue it with Andrew Neil? His claims that it's an investment is absolute folly. Governments don't make smart investment choices, especially not when they are run by the likes of Jeremy Corbyn and his merry band of puppets controlled by unhinged momentum activists. Plus, aside from that, borrowing money to invest is risky business and still involves debt, you moron. Andrew Neil asked him again if there is any limit to the Corbyn credit card, that he does not answer, instead claiming Labour won't borrow willy-nilly, which is important for the upcoming clip, which is thankfully the final clip we will look at in this video. So let's take a look at that now. Remember, Corbyn said they won't need to do excessive borrowing, or should I say, more excessive borrowing than they already plan to do, regardless of what he tries to claim in this interview.
And then at the weekend, you said you were going to compensate the WASPy women. And they're the ones who feel they've been hard done by on state pensions. But I don't see, I've got your grey book here, the costings for it. I don't see any sign of how you're going to pay for that.
I've got a grey book here if you want.
Yeah.
the
No, I've
original
got
copy.
yours, that's fine. Where do you pay for it?
It's, first of all, let's deal with the issue.
No, I know the issue, and I
But
understand
you
the
might,
issue.
but I'm not sure all our viewers
But
do.
I'd like to know where you go. Let's assume it's a great issue, and you're right. How do you pay for it?
It's a moral case. Those women,
How do you pay
those
for it?
women were shortchanged by government, shortchanged in 2011 by the change in the pension rate. I met a group.
I'm accepting that, Mr.
well,
Corbyn. I'm asking you, it costs 60 billion.
Andrew, can I
How do
explain?
you pay for it?
Can I explain why?
No, I'd like you to explain how you pay for
Let me
it.
explain why.
Explain how you pay for it. That's my question.
Let me explain why.
Explain how you pay for it.
We'll pay for it because it has to be paid for.
But how?
It has to be paid for. It's a moral debt.
How will you pay
It's
for it?
a moral debt that's owed to those women.
Will you borrow?
Often between £30,000 and £50,000 has been wrongly taken from them.
I
And so-
understand that's your
and
case.
so,
That's not what I'm arguing with you about. I'm arguing to
Had a
say, how
court-
will you find the money? Now, will you borrow for that?
Had a court case gone the other way, the government would now be having to do it. What we're saying is we will do it. We will do it by paying for it from government reserves, and if necessary, because it's not all going to be paid in 1 year, we will have to borrow in the long term. But I'll just
You
say...
would borrow
Hang
from
on, can I finish?
But you
Andrew-
would borrow for current spending,
Andrew, I
in other
realise your
words.
determination to find out about this. Can I explain?
Well, I would like to find out if you'd answer the question. You would borrow the 60 billion.
Andrew, it's going to be paid for to a specific cohort of women.
I don't
who
know
are-
it's going to be paid for, Mr. Corbyn. It's 60 billion pounds. It's not in your grey book. So are you going to borrow for it?
We will.
It's the only way you can pay for it.
We will raise the money for it either from reserves or, if necessary,
We
of-
haven't got 60 billion of reserves, Mr. Corbyn.
Andrew, as I was explaining, it doesn't all get paid in 1 year.
Okay.
It is over some years that it's paid for. And I just think we should just think for a moment. This is a group of women. who've
You've
been-
given that case, Mr. Corbyn,
have
and there's
been-
other things
have
I want to
been
get on with. You've
abominably
given that
treated,
case.
and we will make sure they are
You
compensated.
just can't tell me how you pay for it.
I can. I've just told you that we will pay for it through either government reserves or, if necessary, borrow
Where
to do
does
it.
the government have 60 billion of reserves?
I didn't say it did have 60 billion in reserves, but
All
I'm
right,
saying,
well, it
but
comes
it
out
doesn't.
at about, what, 6, 7 billion a year? Where do we have these reserves?
It doesn't all have to be paid in 1 year.
It has to be paid over a period of time.
Probably over 10
What is the
years.
size of our reserves at the moment?
It's nowhere near that figure,
Right,
of course.
exactly.
And you're right on that, but it doesn't all have to be paid in 1 year, and it will be an additional cost that should have been factored in to budgets in 2011 when the Conservatives and Liberal Democrats got together to take these, in order to shortchange a whole generation of women in our society.
I want to move on. I've got other things to cover, and we're really running out of time.
We get to the £60 billion waspy winning pledge that was not in his manifesto or costing plans, but was announced over the weekend nonetheless. This pledge involves paying around 3 million women between £15,000 and £30,000 who lost out on income due to changes in pension age. While I agree that they got shortchanged and it was a terrible thing to happen, any payments back to them should be well costed as part of a party's manifesto pledges, not what Corbyn is doing here to gain a few million more votes at the expense of the national debt. When Andrew Neil pulls him up on the fact that none of this shit is costed, he tries to deflect the question and talk about the issue because he knows he cannot answer the question without looking like an idiot that plans to put us in ridiculous amounts of debt in a very short space of time. The Corbyn chicken claims it's a moral case because he wants you to forget about the reality of the situation and just use your fifis so he can do it without being questioned. That is a blatant sign of someone who has something to hide. To claim it's a moral case, so where the money comes from does not matter, shows his plan to borrow the whole 60 billion along with the 750 odd billion pound of borrowing he wants to do based on his manifesto pledges. He has absolutely no clue how much reserves the government has when he claims the money can come from the reserves, which Andrew Neil quickly shuts down as complete fantasy. More Josephine politics there. No matter how many times Corbyn tries to ignore him, Andrew continues asking him how he will pay for it, which is a classic Andrew Neil tactic. Of course, Corbyn wants to explain why he wants to pay for it, not how he wants to pay for it. Like the true shitweasel that he is. He is just making himself look more and more like an idiot as this interview goes on though, doing his best to avoid answering every single question, bar one, even when he's asked it 10 times in a row. Eventually, he does admit that he might need to borrow, but in actual fact, he knows full well he will have to borrow the entire 60 billion and lumber us all with the debt, including the people he'll be giving the money back to. So they won't be in for such a 15 grand windfall. Everyone will be paying it. Their children's children will be paying it. But I don't think there's anything more I can even say about this motorway pile-up of an interview. This should be a lesson for any politician on how not to give a TV interview. This Corbyn chicken was roasted on an open fire by Andrew Neil in what has been a rough week for the whole Labour Party. Good news for the UK, and of course Brexit though. So thank you Jeremy for proving why no one should ever elect you into number 10. Let's be honest, the comment that killed the dinosaurs did less damage than this shit show of an interview. It should spell the Corbyn chicken's political extinction, if I am honest. But I will end the video there guys. It's gone on for long enough I think. I want to thank our PayPal, Patreon, Subscribestar and YouTube members who are linked in the description below for supporting the channel, along with everyone who watches my videos. Remember to let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Leave a like, subscribe with the notification bell and share this video as it helps the channel a lot. And I will see you all in the next one.
This Parliament is a dead Parliament. It should no longer sit. It has no moral right to sit on these green benches. They don't like the truth. Twice they have been asked to let the electorate decide upon whether they should continue to sit in their seats, while they block 17.4 million people's votes. This Parliament is a disgrace, but they're too cowardly to give it a go. But the time is coming. The time is coming, Mr. Speaker, when even these turkeys won't be able to prevent Christmas.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors. Slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires. And that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going and we are glad to be going. We're off.